ओके, अभी हम लोग चैप्टर को कंप्लीट कर चुके हैं। वो कौन सा चैप्टर है? चैप्टर नंबर 1। कॉन्फिडेंस आ रहा है आप लोगों को? अभी हम लोग पूरा उसका कैप्सूल बनाएंगे। कंपनी ऑडिट का कैप्सूल आपको अपलोड करके लिंक भेज दिया हूं। उसका अलग से मतलब नहीं, अगर आपको प्रॉब्लम होगा बाद में ग्रुप में लिंक ढूंढने के लिए तो आप YouTube पे तो सर्च कर ही सकते हो, बट सेकंड अगर ग्रुप में वो लिंक मिलती है तो उसको कॉपी करने का, नोट्स में जाके उसको पेस्ट कर लेने का। चैप्टर 10 कंपनी ऑडिट, उसका लिंक, ठीक है। अभी चैप्टर 1 आज ये रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं, उसका लिंक आपको कल परसों मिल जाएगा, तो उसका लिंक आगे लिख देना। तो आप आपके लिए रेफरेंस के लिए ये नोट्स बना लेना, आप खुद आपका एक प्लेलिस्ट बना लेना। समझ रहे बात को? तो ये सब चीजें आपको करना बहुत जरूरी है। मैं यहां तक बहुत सारी हेल्प कर लूंगा, इसके आगे लड़ना तो आपको ही है, बराबर। तो अभी से सब कुछ कंटेंट रेडी करेंगे। लास्ट मोमेंट पे हम लोग रुकेंगे नहीं कि सर लास्ट मोमेंट पे 1 डे बिफोर एग्जाम का रिवीजन लो। हर्षद सर ने ऑलरेडी कर दिया है, ये 1 डे बिफोर एग्जाम रिवीजन हो गया। आप बोलोगे सर मैराथन लो, तो क्या करना है, ये जितने भी 13 लेक्चर होंगे एक साथ देख लेना, मैराथन हो जाएगा। सही है एकदम। सर चैप्टर वाइज रिवीजन लो, हमारा एक एक दिन एक एक ले लेना, चैप्टर वाइज भी हो जाएगा। मतलब रिश्ता वही, सोच नहीं, वो सिचुएशन के हिसाब से चेंज होते जाएगा बॉस, ठीक है। हाँ तो ऐसा कुछ है। सो अभी मैं आप सबका फुल, एक तो आप डिसाइड कर लो आप लोग रिवीजन में साथ में बोलने वाले हो या नहीं बोलने वाले हो? बोलेंगे? तेरे को नहीं बोलना, तू पहले निकल। हाँ, ऐसे अलाउड ही नहीं है, इसके लिए पहले पूछा। बोलोगे तो रुको, जो नहीं बोलेगे वो लोग चले जाओ, ठीक है। ओके, किसकी? हाँ अभी बस अभी स्टार्ट ही कर रहे हैं अभी अपन, ठीक है। चलो सो लेट्स स्टार्ट गाइस। हम लोग अब बात कर रहे हैं फर्स्ट चैप्टर, इसको रिवाइज कर रहे हैं हम लोग, जो है नेचर, ऑब्जेक्टिव एंड स्कोप ऑफ ऑडिट। शुरुआत करते हैं आपके फेवरेट डेफिनेशन से, वो कौन सा है? सो क्या है ऑडिट का डेफिनेशन? बोलिए। ऑडिट इज एन इंडिपेंडेंट एग्जामिनेशन ऑफ फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन ऑफ एनी एंटिटी वेदर प्रॉफिट ओरिएंटेड और नॉट, irrespective of its size or legal form, when such an examination is conducted with a view to express an opinion thereon. What are the points the auditor should consider so that financial statements does not mislead anybody? Number 1, the account should be prepared based on entries. The entries should be supported by evidence. No entry should be omitted in compilation. None of the entries which is not there in the books of accounts has found its place in the financial statements. Financial statements के अंदर जो information है, it should be clear and unambiguous, and the amounts should be properly disclosed, described and classified. Last में we should give what? True and fair view. As per essay 200, what are the objectives of audit? Number 1, to obtain reasonable assurance that financial statements are free from material misstatement, and to report and communicate as per the essays. What is the scope of audit? Number 1, to cover adequately all the aspects relevant to financial statements. To give an opinion on financial statements, the information should be reliable and sufficient, and it should be properly disclosed. कैसे चेक करेंगे information reliable and sufficient है या नहीं है? So we will study and evaluate the accounting system and internal control, plus we will carry out test, inquiries and other verification procedures. Second point, whether the information is properly disclosed. क्या करेंगे? Compare it with the underlying accounting records and other source data. And second point हम लोग क्या कहेंगे? We will consider the judgment of the management and there is consistent selection and application of accounting policies. Right? उसके बाद last 2 points क्या कहता है? The auditor is not expected to perform the duties outside the scope of his competence. And अगर उसके ऊपर कोई constraint या limitation आता है, so he should give what? Qualified or disclaimer of an opinion. What are the various aspects to be covered in an audit? Number 1, accounting system and internal control, review, checking, verification of assets and liabilities, income and expenditure, comparison, true and fair view, statutory requirements and reporting. सही है एकदम? Yes sir. What are the different advantages of audit of financial statements? Number one, it safeguards the financial interest of the persons who are not associated with the management of the entity. It acts as a moral check. Third point. Fourth point. Fifth point. Third point, it helps in settlement of liability for taxes, negotiating loans and determination of purchase consideration. It helps in settlement of trade disputes for higher wages, bonus and insurance claims. It helps in settlement of accounts at the time of admission and death of a partner. It also helps government to provide assistance and issue various licenses for trade. थर्ड पॉइंट लास्ट के कौन से है ये? ascertain whether proper books of accounts have been maintained, detection of wastages and losses, and to report weaknesses or deficiencies in internal control. What are the inherent limitations of audit? Number one, nature of financial reporting, nature of audit procedure, timeliness of financial reporting, and balance between the benefit and the cost. And last point is other matters. Other matters में आता है fraud. उसके बाद we talk about related party relationship. Number three, compliance with laws and regulation. And number four, going concern. Right? What are the different types of audit? Number one, required by law and not required by law. Right? Now we go ahead and talk about a very important question. What are the elements of system of quality control? किसकी बात हो रही है? What are the elements of system of quality control? So कौन से elements है? Number one, leadership responsibility, ethical requirement, acceptance and continuance of client relationship, human resources, engagement, performance and monitoring. Leadership responsibility, the engagement partner shall take responsibility for overall quality on each audit engagement or assignment. उसके बाद second point, the actions of engagement partner and engagement team shall emphasize that quality is important and quality is essential. Quality important है, उसके 4 point कौन से? Perform, comply, issue and raise concerns. Perform कैसे करेंगे? Perform as per professional standards and legal and regulatory requirements. Comply with firms, policies and procedure. Issue audit report appropriate in these circumstances and raise concerns without fear. Raise concerns without fear. Second point, ethical requirements. वो ethical requirements are also called as fundamental principles. वो कौन से? Integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional competence and due care, professional behavior, professional skepticism and independence. Let's talk about independence. What is independence? Independence is a of mind and of appearance. What is independence of mind? Independence of mind is that state of mind which permits the provision of an opinion without being affected by influences, allowing an individual to act with integrity, exercise objectivity and professional skepticism. Independence of appearance की अगर बात करें तो क्या कहेंगे? The avoidance of the facts and circumstances are so significant that the third party would reasonably conclude that the auditor's integrity, objectivity and professional skepticism has been compromised. What are the benefits of independence? Number one, it safeguards the auditor's ability to express an opinion without being affected by influences. Number two, it enhances the auditor's ability to act with integrity, maintain objectivity and professional skepticism. Write a short note on independence of auditor. Number one, independence implies that the judgment of a person is not subordinate to the directions or wishes of another person who might have engaged him. Number two, the rules dealing with independence does not create nor ensure existence of independence, because independence is a condition of mind and personal character. It should not be confused with the superficial or visible standards of independence sometimes imposed by law. उसके बाद the auditor should not only be but also appear to be independent, and then he should be sincere, straightforward and honest in his approach. He should maintain an impartial attitude without any bias, and he should be free from any interest which is incompatible with what? Integrity and objectivity. Yes or no? Yes sir. What are the different threats to auditors independence? Number 1, self-interest threats, self-review threats, advocacy threats, familiarity threats and intimidation threat. अगर मुझे फाइनेंशियल इंटरेस्ट है उसको कहेंगे, अगर कोई जजमेंट या कंक्लूजन का खुद मैं रिव्यू कर रहा हूं जो मैंने ही दिया है, उसके बाद अगर मैं परसीव, आई एम प्रमोटिंग और परसीव टू प्रमोट द ओपिनियन ऑफ द क्लाइंट to a point where the people may believe that the auditor's objectivity is compromised, तो क्या कहेंगे उसे? एडवोकेसी थ्रेट. अगर मैं सिंपैथेटिक हो जाऊं क्लाइंट के प्रति, लॉन्ग एसोसिएशन है, तो उसे कहेंगे अपन क्या? familiarity threat. And threat of replacement is called as intimidation threats. So are there some safeguards to auditors independence? So these safeguards are: number 1, auditor should be and appear to be independent. He should follow 3 key fundamental principles of integrity, objectivity and professional skepticism. So he should check whether threats to independence exist. If the threats to independence exist, he should desist. He should desist or should put in some place what the safeguards. After putting safeguards, if he is able to eliminate the work, then only he can accept. If he is not able to eliminate, he should not accept the work. खत्म हो गया यहाँ पे इंडिपेंडेंस के बारे में. अब बात करते हैं अबाउट व्हाट? प्रोफेशनल स्केप्टिसिज्म. इट इज एन एटीट्यूड ऑफ क्वेश्चनिंग माइंड वेयर वी ऑलवेज हैव टू बी alert to the circumstances that may indicate possible misstatement due to fraud or error, right? So when we talk about professional skepticism, we have to maintain it during dash and dash, through plan and perform, that is throughout the audit. So what are the circumstances or examples in which we can use professional skepticism? Number 1, when there is contradictory audit evidence, the information that brings about the question of reliability of documents, the circumstances of possible fraud and any procedures other than SS. इसका फायदा क्या होगा? It will help us to reduce the risk of overlooking unusual transaction, over generalizing, and last में inappropriate assumptions about nature, timing and extent of audit procedure and evaluation of results thereof. करेक्ट है एकदम? यस सर. तो सर यहाँ पे अपना सेकेंड पॉइंट एथिकल रिक्वायरमेंट्स खत्म हो जाता है. थर्ड पॉइंट वी टॉक अबाउट इज एक्सेप्टेंस एंड कंटिन्यूएंस ऑफ क्लाइंट रिलेशनशिप. सो देयर इज अ प्रोसीजर दैट नीड्स टू बी फॉलोड व्हिच इज गिवन बाय SQC1. सो फर्स्ट वी हैव टू चेक अबाउट इंटीग्रिटी ऑफ द ओनर्स, मैनेजमेंट एंड दोज चार्ज्ड विद गवर्नेंस. Second point, we have to check the competence of the engagement team. Number 3, whether we are capable of complying with relevant ethical requirements and significant matters in the current or previous relationship that has an impact or an implication on acceptance of the engagement. But if the matter comes to the auditor after acceptance and had that matter known to him earlier, he would decline the engagement. So in that case, he should communicate it to the other partners of the firm and appropriately they will take the decision. So यहाँ पे अपना थर्ड पॉइंट खत्म होता है. Now we need what? ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज. उनमें 3 बातें होनी चाहिए, वो है कॉम्पिटेंस, कैपेबिलिटी एंड कमिटमेंट. बोलो और एक बार, कॉम्पिटेंस, कमिटमेंट एंड कैपेबिलिटी. सही एकदम. इसके लिए पॉलिसीज एंड प्रोसीजर्स बनानी पड़ेगी. तो वो पॉलिसीज एंड प्रोसीजर्स में क्या आएगा? नंबर 1, एस्टिमेशन ऑफ पर्सनल नीड्स, देन रिक्रूटमेंट, उसके बाद परफॉर्मेंस इवैल्यूएशन, कॉम्पिटेंस एंड कैपेबिलिटी, फिर प्रमोशन, करियर डेवलपमेंट एंड कॉम्पेंसेशन. सही है एकदम? यस सर. नाउ वी टॉक अबाउट इज एंगेजमेंट परफॉर्मेंस. एंगेजमेंट परफॉर्मेंस की बात करें तो वी हैव टू परफॉर्म एज पर प्रोफेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स and legal and regulatory requirement and issue what? Audit report which is appropriate in these circumstances. So इसके लिए we need to have what? Policies and procedures, and in that policies and procedure we should aim for number 1, consistency. For consistency, upon second point, we will give what? Manual, software tools and standardized documentation. And what are the matters included in it? So number 1, how the engagement team is briefed about understanding of the objectives of the work. Number 2, compliance with the engagement standards. Number 3, supervision, coaching and training. Then number 4, review. Number 5, documentation, and all the processes should be current. करेक्ट एकदम? यस सर. ये बात हो गई अपनी किसके बारे में? एंगेजमेंट परफॉर्मेंस. नाउ वी हैव टू डू व्हाट? मॉनिटरिंग ओवर व्हाट? द सिस्टम्स ऑफ क्वालिटी कंट्रोल, whether they are relevant, whether they are adequate, and whether they are operating effectively and complied with in practice. So we have to see whether there is adherence to the professional standards, legal and regulatory requirements, whether those policies and procedures have been applied to issue audit report appropriate in these circumstances, and the entire quality control process is its design and whether it is implemented effectively. Correct ekdam? Yes sir. Now we go ahead and talk about your favorite essay 210, agreeing the terms of. वेरी गुड. तो इसके अंदर सबसे पहले हम लोग बात करते हैं अबाउट प्री कंडीशंस फॉर ऑडिट. सो व्हाट आर प्री कंडीशंस फॉर ऑडिट? इसमें 2 पार्ट है. नंबर 1, the use by management of what? The acceptable financial reporting framework and the agreement with the management or where appropriate those charged with governance, the premise on which the audit is conducted. Now, in order to establish whether those preconditions for audit are present or not, we have to do the following. Number 1, determine whether financial reporting framework is acceptable and obtain an agreement with the management that they acknowledge their responsibility for. Number 1, preparation of financial statements, implementation of internal control, and provide auditor with all the information, additional information and unrestricted access to persons. Correct ekdam? Yes sir. Now we talk about agreeing the terms of engagement. As per essay 210, we will prepare a written document called as what? Engagement letter. That will be given by whom to whom? Auditor to the client. So what are the contents of engagement letter? Number 1, we talk about objective and scope. Then second point, responsibility of auditor, responsibility of management. Then we talk about the expected form and content of audit report and identification of acceptable financial reporting framework. Sahi ekdam? Yes sir. In case of recurring audit, that is to say year after year, I am only the auditor. Am I supposed to prepare the new engagement letter every time? It depends upon the following circumstances. Number 1, we talk about is the change. There is what? Change in the objective and scope. Number 2, revised or special terms of engagement. Number 3, misunderstanding about objective और scope होने के बाद number 3 में क्या आता है? Change. अगले 3 point change. So next क्या point कहता है? Change in senior management, change in ownership, change in nature or size of the entity's business. Then change in financial reporting framework, change in legal or regulatory requirements, and change in other reporting framework. Sahi ekdam? Yes sir. Now if there is a limitation which has been imposed on the auditor prior to acceptance of the audit and it results into giving a disclaimer of an opinion, in such case audit should not be accepted, and acceptance in the change in engagement before completion of the engagement, right, may result because of what? Because of change in what? The circumstances, misunderstanding, and management imposed limitation or limitation by circumstances. The auditor should consider appropriateness of doing so. So दो बातें होगी, एक तो वो जस्टिफाइबल है या नॉन जस्टिफाइबल है. जस्टिफाइबल है न्यू रिपोर्ट एज पर द न्यू एंगेजमेंट लेटर, बट नो रेफरेंस वुड बी इंक्लूडेड इन ऑर्डर टू अवॉइड कंफ्यूजन अबाउट ओरिजिनल एंगेजमेंट एंड एनी प्रोसीजर्स परफॉर्म्ड इन द original engagement. If the auditor feels that reasonable justification does not exist, barabar, and management does not let him continue, he should withdraw and report it to the appropriate persons. Here we complete with the first chapter. Done. Confidence आ रहा है आपको? खत्म हो गया. 17 minutes. वो पहले का कितने में इसमें हो गया था? 30. हाफ एन आवर में वो, 20 मिनट में ये, एक घंटे में आप 2-2, 3-3 चैप्टर्स आप ऐसे रिवाइज कर लोगे, खत्म हो जाएगी बात, राइट?